this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at Tompkins Square Park, part of the 2025 Charlie Parker Jazz Festival. Blessing the band stage this year in Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem, Saturday night was legendary trumpeter, educator, and composer Nicholas Payton. As you know, Nicholas Payton continues to be on the front lines, not only on the education front, but also making sure that the lineage of this history and this music continues to exist. Tonight here on the Pace Report, you're going to see highlights of his performance. Also, I had a chance to sit down and break bread with him. He has a dynamic book on meditation called Notes from the Zen Gangster, which is now available on Amazon.com, as well as he's released some music to accompany this book. Also had a chance to sit down and talk about how meditation has helped him musically as well as in his personal life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Nicholas Payton performing at this year's 2025 Charlie Parker Jazz Festival. Brother Payton, I gotta ask you, man, you've had a hell of a year. You've had a hell of a year. I mean, America and the world is having a hell of a year. We're not even in fall yet, man. How did we get to this point?
I'm gonna tell you like James Brown said, living in America.
Oh man, I mean, First of all, let's talk about the Berkeley debacle.
You going there with it?
No, hold on.
Jumping in.
No, I have to, because the thing that I find very interesting and strange about this is that we have a person in office in Washington who continues to have a greatest hits highlight of misogynistic, racist, ignorant comments. And he's sitting in front of world dignitaries as this shit continues to fold in real time. And your comments surfaced on social media that was minuscule. I just find that's kind of strange. How do we get to this?
Living in America, eye to eye, across the
nation.
I don't have the right complexion for the connection, you know. I mean, they slapped that label on you, and Malcolm X talked about this. A lot of people, anti-Semite, and it's just a way to neutralize you. First of all, I made these comments in 2020 after being harassed for supporting Nick Cannon, who was similarly assigned with anti-Semitism for speaking to oppression in the hands of Zionists. Man, there's so many layers and so many ways to unpack this. I never felt it necessary to separate Zionists from the larger conversation of, let's say, so-called white supremacy. But when asked why I support Nick Cannon, well, here's why. Some folks who identify as Jewish people have had a history of, in particular, dealing, if we're talking about the music industry, being in control and profiting off of black music at a disproportionate rate to the actual black artists. What did I say that's not historically documented? That's incorrect. That's all. So if you want to miscontextualize what I said, and I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm not anti-Jewish. My father's Jewish. I'm Jewish. I mean, what level we want to discuss it on? There's so many layers to this. It's not anti-anything, no more so than it's anti-white. What I've said about black music, right? Because it is black music, but that's not to say who can or can't play it. It's just saying who are the progenitors, who created this art form, and why did they create it? Because they didn't have a voice. This was their way of re-establishing a language that was taken from them when they were enslaved, and indigenous people who were forced to not speak their native tongues, who developed a new language in the blues and so forth, and created this music as a new way of speaking. That is the genesis of world popular culture. So they call Michael Jackson the king of pop. Louis Armstrong, Pops, is the first king of pop. He's the first world pop star.
That's right.
So all of us owe an incredible amount of debt to him. And I don't care who you're talking about, be it Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, or Katy Perry, and Miley Cyrus. All those roads lead back to Pops. He's the first. And it didn't exist before him.
You're right.
Largely because, much like Michael Jackson in the music video that catapulted him to a different level of fame, Louis Armstrong's voice and musical ideas coincided with a new technological advance in the phonograph, which allowed people to hear the same piece of music all over the world in roughly real time. And that allowed him to be worldwide at the same moment. And he revolutionized all of this. So we all owe a debt to him. I don't care if you're black, green, alien, him, she, her, whatever it is. He started it. There's no, and he pays debt to King Oliver and his predecessors, but there's no real precedent to what he did. He is the genesis. He is the alpha and omega for the 20th century, for all of this stuff, for pop music, funk, hip hop, swing, reggae, whatever you had. None of it exists without pops as we know it. None of it exists.
You know what I find very interesting right now? I was talking to a couple of musicians, and it seems like they want to erase everything that we've contributed to modern society. I'm talking about education, technology,
light bulbs.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, these are the essentials that the world did. Yeah, and musically, Nick, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm not hearing a lot of musicians trying to not just encourage people to think a different way or present different ideas, but it seems like there's a lack of spirituality in the music right now.
They're scared. They're scared that the same thing that has happened to me will happen to them for speaking out, if they're honest about it, right? Because, as you saw, in a matter of days, maybe a week, I got fired and dethroned from my position as chair of the brass department at Berkeley College of Music. So, that's just so deep. The reason was for reposting something my pianist said, but really it was for what was deemed as anti-Semitic comments. But they can't fire me for that because those same comments were under review in 2021, a year after I said them, and I was found to not be anti-Semitic. And I know for a fact that the dean and the provost and the vice president and the head of HR actually agree with what I said, because it's a matter of historical data. It's not racist or anti-Semitic to say that some people who identify as Jewish have had a lion's share of control in the music business. What did I say? Like what? That's a fact. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, but that's what it is. But you can't say it. We're living in a world where you can't say it. And I think a lot of, to what you're saying, the younger people see that and they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of losing their homes. They're afraid of losing their ability to maintain a livelihood. I guess I'm just stupid enough to not care.
Nick, we're the same age, so we came up with the hip hop era, and I can think of De La Soul. They did a heavy song called "Millie Pulled a Gun on Santa," and the song was about sexual abuse. And then Tribe comes out with classic example of date rape, and then we have the self-destruction movement. We have a myriad of hip-hop that our cats our age, who were in their teens and their 20s, that was speaking about some atrocities. Chuck D, KRS-One, Souls of Mischief, The Coup. I'm going on, but
you remember what happened to Professor Griff, though.
Yeah.
And that's really that's actually the conversation. He was silenced and excommunicated from Public Enemy for speaking to the same things.
Right.
And Griff was on the podcast with Nick Cannon that I'm talking about. So it's the same thing, bro.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, it's the same
I wanted to bring that up, right.
Yeah.
See, we have to dot our I's and cross our T's, because from a journalist perspective, I know the history and still studying history because I'm learning stuff every day. But this music in our culture transcends this. 120, we're sitting in Harlem right now, 125th and Lenox, in the late 50s and 60s, where Malcolm X spoke to the people.
brothers was on soapboxes,
Right.
giving the daily word.
Right.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
The apple. Musically, Nick, you continue to push the buttons. Today you brought up a very important point about not having Gary Bart's music played. I want you to talk to my viewers about that.
Sure. Well, DJ Culture Child, as we know, is Angelica Beener. She told me before our set that some dude came up to her because she was playing some Freddie Hubbard and so forth. Things that would not be considered jazz in the set, and some white dude was like, you know, can you play some jazz? You know, and this pace is my problem with the term jazz, because as long as we continue to cape for that terminology, we give permission to those outside of the culture to feel ownership to it. And rightfully so, because Jazz is the white appropriation of black music. So when you call your music jazz, you're basically giving the so-called oppressor authorship to commandeer ownership of your intellectual property. What the whole point of the band movement, as it's known now, but when I started talking about this, there was no band movement. But the whole point of it is to reclaim that which we owned and created. And it's not a means of cutting people out of it. It's not to say that if you're white or non-black or Mexican or Irish or Jewish or anything else that you can't play it. It's about paying deference to the people who created it. Because what's important about paying deference to the people who created it, because when they created it, it was out of a state of them having to sacrifice a part of who they were to exist. They could not stay in the same hotel that they played for the patrons for. They had to go in the back of the club.
You talk about the Cotton Club.
Yeah.
They couldn't be in the house, but they could sell cigarettes.
Yeah,
Women could,
yeah.
If you were high yellow.
And you can entertain, and you can tap dance, and you can sing, but you can't be a patron.
Yeah.
So that's what this music, that's the environment it was created out of. You know, it's important to remember that for all of us. And it is a galvanizing force for the world. It is the genesis of world popular culture. It's what brought the world together as a community. And it's important to acknowledge that a people who are not recognized as human are responsible for creating humanity worldwide. We need to analyze that and pay deference to those who did it, to your Duke Ellingtons, to your Ella Fitzgeralds, to your Billie Holidays, to your Count Basies. That's important. They weren't given basic human rights. They had to pass through towns and hold their piss, you know, or risk dying,
Right.
to play this music for an audience that did not respect them as human beings.
And still don't respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Still don't respect.
So that's important to remember when we play this music. It's not just notes. And that's the problem with institutions like a Berkeley or Juilliard or whatever, is that black people who didn't have basic rights died to give us this art form. We must remember that. I don't give a fuck what color you are.
This
right?
is our music.
Yeah. Just like we do anything else. If I'm gonna cook Chinese food, I'm gonna be expected to know something about that culture. If I'm gonna call myself playing mariachi music, I'm not gonna hate on Mexicans for it. I'm gonna be expected to know something about that culture, and I'm gonna wanna go to the source. But when you say jazz, it's a bit nebulous who to go to. And so I don't like that terminology. Call it black music, and we stop people from being able to go up to DJ Culture Child and say, can you play some jazz? If it's called black music, and I'm never trying to tell people what to call it what you want. But if y'all continue to call a music jazz, then you're continuing to oppress the music, which is your choice. But you will never have freedom under that term. That's all.
You know, when you were appointed the position at Berkeley, I was like, God, this is a godsend. I was a godsend because this generation, like you said, they're afraid. They're culturally and spiritually afraid. And I want to ask you, I can't even fathom what you were imparting on the next generation of musicians in your classroom. What were you doing in those
I
sessions?
was saying the real shit, bro. Which, to your point, I was surprised when I was offered the position. Because I was like, y'all know who I am, right? Y'all really want this? I was like, okay, y'all ready. Y'all ready to go. But as time showed it, y'all not really ready to go. And I get it. And I get to your point where you opened up with is we're dealing with the administration and the pressure of that is different. Whereas they had my back in 2021 for the same statements, in 2025 it looks a lot different.
Right.
Are we really ready to stand by that? They weren't. And I get it. But let's call it what it is, though. But I'm not gonna change, bro, for a paycheck. I'm not doing it. And they should have known that when they hired me.
Right.
So if they thought I was gonna capitulate because I'm getting a paycheck, they had me wrong. They knew who this nigga was when they hired me.
You know, when I talk to the younger musicians, I talk to people when they ask me about trying to do what I'm doing, and I tell them, listen, you have to kind of implode what the elders taught you, and you kind of have to bring in what you know and expound upon what you know to make things better. And I think we're at a cross point now where the elders are kind of like holding on for dear life. And once they lose that grip, Nick, I think everything that you're trying to present, they're going to be more receptive. Stuff that I'm trying to present, people are going to be more receptive. I think the elders kind of have to step aside. We're not shitting on them. It's just there's a time where we have to let things go. Are we at that point right now?
I don't know, bro. I'm not letting it go. I'm just not built like that. Like, that's not why I got into this music. I get a lot of people are afraid to speak to these things. But you know, in a matter of a week, I had like a dozen or so pieces to come out in various publications labeling me an anti-Semite. And not one of the pieces actually justified or had to prove what I actually said was wrong or anti-Semitic. Because they can't, because nothing I said is anti-Semitic. First of all, how are you gonna call a Semitic people anti-Semitic? Let's get into that.
Right.
There's so many layers to this, bro. Like if we're dealing with it from an anthropological perspective, all scientists agree that the first people on Earth were black people. And this is not to hate on any other race or whatever else, but the cradle of civilization is Africa. How are some people of European descent claiming authorship over something from an anthropological perspective that are people who are a part of the indigenous genesis of being as we know it on this earth, in this realm? How are you stepping in line before them? That's really weird. And if we sit around and accept that, then we're basically assigning ourselves to resolution of the erasure of everything that we know to be true from a historical perspective. And I just can't do that. That's antithetical to the whole reason I picked up a horn to play this music.
I mean, Nick, they trying to take books away
Yeah.
from cats now. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's make this make sense. You know, there was a book called Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury. You know, reading of books, the burning of books. We're kind of right here. That book, George Orwell's Animal Farm. We're here now, man. We're literally
1984.
we're here.
Yeah.
It's sad. Do you think the musicians of the younger ilk, are they ready to embrace this change?
I guess we're gonna see, bro. I guess we're gonna see what people are built of. I don't know. I can't answer it. I know what my purpose and mission is. I can't account or answer for anyone else. I'm willing to accept the charges for what I've said. And I'm not apologetic because I've really said nothing wrong. If some people have taken offense to that, that's fine. But what I haven't seen is someone saying, improving what I said was wrong or hateful. I don't hate anyone. I want all of us to be free. And anything that I say is of service to all of us being free. I don't give a fuck if you're black, white, green, Jew, Asian, or anything else. I don't care. I want all of us to be free. And I've said this explicitly, but they've curated what I've said to suit their narrative. That's the part of it. I said Jews were vile predators when I called one person a vile predator in a piece that I wrote in defense of my father who passed at the hands of an oppressive institution in New Orleans, Preservation Hall. I called the proprietor of that institution, Benji Jaffe, a vile predator. And nowhere in that piece that I wrote, I mentioned him being a Jewish. I didn't say that. So that in itself is just libelous. So any article that said I called Jews with an S vile predators, no, I called one person a vile predator, and nowhere was his Jewish heritage mentioned. But that's the era we live in, that you can print some false, damaging stuff about a person and not be accountable. It's dangerous. It's me today, it could be any one of us tomorrow. So it's not about what's happened to me or me losing my job. I don't really care about that. But if you're okay with that happening, it could be you tomorrow, it could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be your brother, it could be your cousin. It's dangerous, people. If you allow that to happen, then you're signing up for it to be you next. And that's where we are.
Talk about your meditation book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you keep throwing it on people, man. I mean, but we
That's
need.
What she said.
I said this earlier. There's literally no connection with spirituality these days, and meditation for me is the clearing of my mind to seek solace on issues and problems that I have, to go out into this world to adapt.
Sure.
Tell everybody what this book of meditations is about.
Sure. Well, the book is called Notes from the Zen Gangster. The Zen Gangster is a moniker that was given to me by the pianist Vijay Iyer. And when he called me that, it seemed appropriate, because I'm not just Zen, which that is a part of my history, but there's some nigritude to there too, so that's the gangster part. It's a collection, it's a book of a collection of a lot of aphorisms, thoughts of the day that I've been compiling since about 06, 07. I just started writing. And 15 years in the making. I knew I had a book there somewhere. But after COVID, sometime around 2020, 21, I hit up my editor who does a lot of stuff for me, Scout, and I had well over a book's worth of quotes, and I asked her to help me comb through these things to pick out the best ones. And I said, don't appease me, like call me out and challenge me on something you feel is not right, and sometimes we go back and forth on something. This is why this should exist or why it shouldn't. And of that larger body of work, I called out 366 quotes. So the idea was one for each day of the year plus one for the leap year. So 366 quotes live on this book. And an important part for me is it's a thought of the day book, but it's no sequential order. It's not married to a calendar year. So you can basically open this book anywhere and start reading, and it can potentially be meaningful to you. Because sometimes I feel like even for me, I don't have the bandwidth for reading a book from cover to cover. I just want to pick something up and free form, just start reading, and wherever it feels right. And that's where this book is. You can read one or two of them and let it hit you and marinate on it. And sit on a plane, sit on a train, sit on a bus, be in your office, whatever. And then pick it up when you're ready. It's like a magic 8-ball, if you will. And let a quote hit you, and whatever that means to you, sit with it.
How has spirituality and meditation affected you musically?
It is the root source. Now, whatever that means to you is different, right? Because to me, music is meditation. And when I say meditation, it's the same as what some people call prayer. Whatever that means to you. Having studied Zen Buddhism, most specifically Soto Zen, which in my opinion is maybe the most unromantic form of Zen meditation, which to me, that I'm an extremist, so I have to go to the most hardcore of whatever it is that I'm imbibing in. That's sort of where I sit. And I experimented with so many different forms of Buddhism till I found Soto, which was like, okay, this is home for me. Very unromantic, very unsexy. You just come in a dojo and you sit. One thing that struck me was sound and how that related to the meditation process. They hit a wooden block, so everyone's congregating in the foyer. And then when it's time to come in the dojo, they hit this wooden block, and okay, it's time for us to move. So that's related to sound. Wooden hammer to the wooden block. You come in and you walk in the dojo a certain way, and we all take our appropriate places on the zafu, which is a pillow. Some people sit in the lotus position, full lotus. Some people sit in half lotus. Some people are on their knees. And you just sit and stare at a wall for 30 minutes. And this wall has maybe an off-white center and two wooden blocks to sort of focus your gaze, and you just look at that for 30 minutes and focus on your breath. They ring a bell, and that's time for walking meditation. And you just walk in a circle for like another 10 minutes. Then you hit another bell and you sit for another 30 minutes. And then they ring another bell, and then you chant for maybe another 10, 15 minutes. And so whereas I don't necessarily practice that exact methodology, what that taught me was you can meditate in silence, which is what we did when we sat. You can meditate moving, which is what we did when we walked. And you can meditate making sound, which is what we did when we chanted. So to me, the takeaway was anything in life can be a meditation.
That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report reporting live at this year's 2025 Charlie Parker Jazz Festival here in Tompkins Square Park here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Nicholas Payton for his time. Make sure you go out and buy from the Zen Gangster, which is now available on Amazon.com. Also visit him online at nicholaspayton.com for his upcoming tour dates and to order his music. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Brian Bacchus, the artistic director of the Charlie Parker Jazz Festival, also the staff and management of Summer Stays for their warm hospitality. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as leave comments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.